I have a memory from when I was 9 years old. My father is standing at the kitchen table looking at a drawing I made at school. A landscape, mountains, a river, a small house. My teacher had written "Beautiful Imagination" in red pen at the top. I'd carried it home carefully, holding it flat so it wouldn't crease, thinking about the moment I'd show him. He looked at it for about 3 seconds. Then he looked at my younger brother Daniel's math test. A perfect score, small and neat. And pinned that to the fridge. He put my drawing down without a word and walked out of the kitchen. I stood there for a moment. Then I folded the drawing into quarters, went to my room and put it in a shoebox under my bed. I spent the next 30 years putting things in that shoebox. This story is about the day I finally opened it. Part 1. The Family. Let me introduce you to the Hargrove family, because context is everything here. My father, Richard, built a mid-sized logistics and warehousing company starting in the late 80s. Not a dynasty, but comfortable, solid. Enough to give us a nice house in the suburbs, private school, the kind of upbringing where money was never the word that ended a conversation. My mother, Margaret, was the emotional weather of our household. When Richard was pleased, she was warm and luminous. When Richard was disappointed, she became carefully distant, not cruel, just absent. She loved us, I believe, but she loved his approval more. After 40 years of marriage, the two things had probably fused into something she could no longer separate. Then there was Daniel, younger by 3 years. Golden from birth, not because he was extraordinary, but because he was legible. He got the grades, joined the right clubs, studied business, came into the family company at 24 like a key turning in a lock. Richard talked about Daniel the way people talk about investments that paid off. And my sister Claire, youngest, 5 years behind me, radiant, social, magnetic. She married well, a man named Thomas who wore good suits and said things like, "At the end of the day," before every opinion. They had a beautiful house, 2 beautiful children, a beautiful life that existed mostly for other people to see. And then there was me, James, the oldest. Part 2. The Loser. I want to be fair to myself here because for a long time I wasn't. I was not Daniel. I couldn't make numbers sing the way he could. I wasn't built for the family company in the way Richard needed. I didn't have the appetite for the performance of business, the handshakes and the golf and the client dinners. I went to a state university when my siblings went to schools Richard could brag about. I studied literature, which Richard referred to, for the entirety of my 20s, as your little hobby. I worked in publishing for several years. Then, in a small independent bookshop I co-owned with a friend. Then I had a marriage, Laura, kind and funny and patient, that lasted 6 years before ending quietly and without drama. We didn't have children, which Richard referenced more than once as a shame. By the time I was in my mid-30s, I was working as a financial consultant for small businesses, which is, and this is the part that I need you to hold on to, not the same thing as being unsuccessful. I was good at it, genuinely good. Numbers, despite what my academic history suggested, were not my enemy. Understanding how small businesses breathe, where they hemorrhage, how to stop the bleeding and redirect the flow. That turned out to be something I had a gift for. But from the outside, and more importantly, from inside the Hargrove family, the picture looked like this. James had fumbled through his 20s, failed at marriage, never joined the company, and was now doing something vague with spreadsheets for small clients. Loser was never said out loud, not until the reunion. But it was always in the room. Part 3. What they didn't know. Here is the part of the story that I kept private for 15 years, the part that was in the envelope. In 2009, Hargrove Logistics hit a wall. The financial crisis had compressed margins across the industry, but my father had also made two significant strategic errors in the 2 years prior. Overextended on a new warehouse facility and locked into a supplier contract with terrible exit terms. By early 2009, the company was carrying debt it couldn't service and facing a covenant breach on its primary credit line. Richard told Daniel. He did not tell Claire, he absolutely did not tell me. What he didn't know was that Daniel told me. Not to ask for help. Daniel wasn't built that way. He told me in a moment of genuine panic at a bar after 2 drinks because he needed to say it out loud to someone and I was there. He swore me to secrecy immediately after. Said Dad would rather close the company than take help from James. Those were his exact words. Dad would rather close the company than take help from James. I sat with that for a week. And then I did something that I have never, until the day of the reunion, told a single person in my family. I got to work. I had 3 clients at the time who were small, but liquid. One of them, a man named Howard, who ran a regional freight brokerage, owed me a significant consulting fee that we'd agreed to defer. I called in the fee. Howard was fair about it. I took that money, combined it with a personal loan I took out against my apartment, and structured a private credit facility, not in my name directly. Through a small holding company I set up specifically for this purpose. Anonymous, clean, legally airtight. The facility was offered to Hargrove Logistics through a financial intermediary as a third-party bridge loan. Standard terms, nothing suspicious. The kind of lifeline that distressed businesses sometimes find when a quiet investor decides the fundamentals are sound. Richard took it. He never asked who was behind the intermediary. In crisis, people often don't. They see the rope and they grab it. The bridge loan bought the company 8 months. In that time, the supplier contract was renegotiated. The warehouse facility was partially sublet, and the credit line covenant was met. Hargrove Logistics survived the crisis. Over the next 4 years, as the company recovered and grew, I quietly extended and restructured the facility twice more. The total exposure at its peak was significant. I won't give the exact number, but it was the kind of number that explained why my apartment was modest and my vacations were local, and my car was 7 years old. In 2014, the company refinanced with a conventional lender, and the bridge facility was technically repaid. But through a structure that, by legal design, converted the remaining balance into a contingent interest in the company's receivables. Not equity, not a named stake, just a quiet contractual right that sat in a drawer that only I knew about. For 15 years, the Hargrove family ate well, slept soundly, and referred to their own survival as proof of Richard's resilience. They didn't know the rope had a name on it. Part 4. The Reunion. The reunion was Claire's idea. She called it a family legacy celebration, which tells you most of what you need to know about Claire. It was held at a venue, an actual rented venue, because the houses of the assembled family were apparently insufficient for the scale of occasion Claire had envisioned. There were tables with centerpieces. There was catering. There was a slideshow. The slideshow is relevant. About 40 family members attended, aunts, uncles, cousins, family friends, who'd been around long enough to feel like relatives. Round tables, open bar. The general atmosphere of a rehearsed performance of family happiness. I came alone, which Claire had noted on the phone beforehand in a tone that wasn't quite a judgment, but was adjacent to one. The first 2 hours were fine. I talked to cousins I genuinely liked. I ate decent food. I watched Richard work the room in the way he always had. hand on the shoulder, big laugh, the performance of a patriarch comfortable in his domain. Then came the speeches. Daniel went first, polished, warm, exactly the right length. He talked about the company, about Richard's vision, about the legacy being built. Claire went second, emotional, glowing, with the particular eloquence of someone who had rehearsed being authentic. Then Richard stood up. He talked for a while about family, about what he'd built, about the values he'd tried to instill. It was good. He was always good at this. And then he said something that I don't think was planned. Or maybe it was. I've never been sure. He said, "A man knows what he's built when he looks at his children. Daniel, you are everything I could have hoped for. Claire, you make me proud every single day." He paused. Then he looked at me across 2 tables and 40 people and 30 years and said, "And then there's James." Small laugh from somewhere in the room, the nervous kind. James has always done things his own way, which is a polite way of saying, some people are built for success and some people are built for excuses. Another laugh, larger this time, more comfortable. I used to worry about him. Now I just figure, some kids turn out to be the worker bees and some turn out to be the queen. James turned out to be neither. He lifted his glass. To the family that showed up. The room drank. I sat very still. The thing about profound humiliation in public is that it has a specific physical quality. A sensation like the temperature dropping suddenly, like the room becoming very bright and very far away at the same time. I was aware of faces turning toward me and then politely away. I was aware of Claire looking at her glass. I was aware of Daniel's jaw doing something complicated. I sat still for approximately 30 seconds. Then I reached into my jacket pocket. I placed the envelope on the table in front of me. I had prepared it 3 weeks ago, the night I received the invitation, and something in me, something that had been very patient for a very long time, said, "This is the last one." The envelope was white, sealed. On the front, in clean block letters, I had written, "Open after I leave." I stood up. I buttoned my jacket. I looked at Richard, not with anger, because the anger had long since refined itself into something cooler. And I said, quietly enough that only the nearest table could hear, "Enjoy the rest of the evening." And I walked out. Part 5. The envelope. I want to tell you what was inside it because that's what you're here for. The envelope contained a table of contents page. I am a consultant. I organize things. And behind it, tabbed and labeled, the following. Tab A. The original incorporation documents for the holding company I created in 2009. My name clearly listed. Tab B. The bridge loan agreement between the holding company and Hargrove Logistics, signed by Richard in March of 2009, countersigned by the intermediary. The amounts, the terms, the dates. Tab C. The 2 subsequent restructuring agreements from 2011 and 2013. Tab D. The 2014 refinancing document, including the conversion clause. The contingent receivables interest that had never been redeemed, with a current valuation note prepared by an independent accountant signed and dated 1 month prior to the reunion. Tab E. A letter from my attorney confirming that the contingent interest was valid, enforceable, and had been formally noticed to Hargrove Logistics 30 days prior. A notice that had apparently been received by Daniel and not shared with Richard. I want to pause on that last part. The notice had been received by Daniel. Daniel had known for a month. He had said nothing. Tab F. A single page, no legal language, just a letter from me. It said, "For 15 years you have had a word for me. Tonight, you said it in front of everyone we know. I have spent those 15 years making sure this family did not lose what it had. Not for gratitude, I never expected any. Not for recognition, I clearly wasn't going to receive it. Because despite everything, I didn't want to watch something our grandfather started disappear because of bad decisions and bad timing. The documents in this envelope represent what I actually am. Not a loser, not a failure, not an embarrassment. The man who held the rope. What happens next is your choice. My attorney's contact information is on the final page. James. Part 6. The week after. I drove home that night and slept better than I had in months. I want to be honest about that. I'm not going to perform anguish I didn't feel. I felt clean. The way you feel after setting down something very heavy that you've been carrying so long, you stopped noticing the weight. The calls started the next morning. Daniel first. I let it go to voicemail. His message was long and fractured, starting with anger, pivoting to explanation, landing on something close to pleading. He'd known about the notice for a month and hadn't told Richard because he was trying to figure out the right approach. He needed to talk to me. He needed me to understand. I texted back, "I'll be available Thursday." Claire called 6 times over 2 days. Her messages progressed in a way that was almost clinical in its stages. Confusion, then indignation, then a very brittle version of warmth, then something that was technically an apology, but structured entirely around what she needed from me. I texted her the same. "I'll be available Thursday." Margaret called once. She didn't leave a message. She called again the next evening, and I picked up because she was my mother, and that still meant something to me regardless of everything else. She was quiet for a moment when I answered. Then she said, "James, I didn't know." I said, "I know you didn't, Mom." She said, "Why didn't you ever tell us?" And I said, and I meant it, not as an accusation, but as a simple statement of fact. Because Dad called me a loser at my own kitchen table when I was 12 years old, and every year after that reinforced the message that my contributions weren't visible when they were quiet. So I kept them quiet and kept contributing anyway. That's who I am. I just needed you all to finally know it. She cried, quietly, the way she did everything. I stayed on the phone with her for a while. Richard called on day 3. I had been wondering what that call would sound like. I'd imagined it many times over the years. Not this specific scenario, but some version of my father being brought to a moment of reckoning. I had imagined anger, justification, the practiced authority of a man who had never in my memory admitted he was wrong. What I got was none of those things. What I got was a tired old man who sounded smaller than I had ever heard him. He said my name. Just my name, the way parents say it when there are no other words. I said, "Hi, Dad." Long silence. The accountant explained it to us. All of it. "Okay." "James, I didn't..." He stopped, started again. "I didn't know." "I know." "Why..." I stopped him there because I'd spent 3 weeks preparing for this conversation, and I knew exactly what I needed to say, and I needed to say it without being interrupted. "Dad, I need you to listen to me without talking for a minute. Can you do that?" Pause. "Yes." "You stood up in front of everyone we know and you called me a loser. You've been calling me that in one way or another since I was 9 years old. Not always in words. Sometimes just in how you looked at Daniel's test score and put my drawing down. Sometimes in the way you introduced me at parties. James does something with small businesses. Sometimes in the silence when I told you about something I was proud of. I kept quiet about the financial support because I didn't do it for credit. I did it because I loved this family, even when this family made it very difficult too. I did it because I didn't want our grandfather's company to disappear on my watch just because I wasn't formally invited to the table. But last week you said it out loud in front of 40 people and laughed, and I decided that the version of James who absorbs that quietly and keeps supporting from the shadows is done. So here's what's going to happen now. Part 7. The conditions. I want to be clear about something. I did not destroy my family. I want to be clear because I've seen the comments on posts like this. People who want the nuclear option, the total scorched earth, the villain brought to complete ruin. And I understand that impulse. I've felt it. But I'm not built for destruction. I'm built for construction. And somewhere in the careful, quiet work of 15 years of holding a rope, I had also been holding onto a version of my family that I wasn't ready to let go of entirely. What I wanted was not ruin. What I wanted was truth. So the conditions I presented through my attorney were these. 1. A formal meeting, all 4 of us plus Margaret, where Richard acknowledged on the record in a signed family agreement the history of the financial support and its origin. 2. A restructuring of my role relative to the company. Not a takeover, not retribution. A formal advisory position with appropriate compensation, bringing the invisible visible. 3. The contingent receivables interest to be converted to a small, defined equity stake. Enough to matter, not enough to threaten anyone. 4. One thing that had no legal weight and couldn't be enforced, but that I put in writing anyway because I needed it to exist somewhere outside my own head. A letter from Richard. Not written by a lawyer, written by him, about what he understood now. Daniel pushed back on 2 and 3, hired his own attorney, came into the first meeting with the energy of someone prepared to negotiate hard. I let him talk. Then I said very quietly, "Daniel, you received the notice a month ago and didn't tell anyone. You can negotiate if you want to. But that detail becomes relevant to the board's understanding of recent events if this becomes adversarial." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "What's the equity number?" We agreed on a number within the hour. Part 8. The letter. Richard's letter arrived 8 days after our meeting, handwritten, which I hadn't expected. 3 pages. His handwriting, which I recognized from birthday cards and the occasional note left on the kitchen counter decades ago. Slightly cramped, leaning right. I'm not going to share most of it because some things belong only to the people they were written for. But I'll share one paragraph because I think it explains something about why I'm posting this at all. He wrote, "I have been trying to understand for 2 weeks why I didn't know. The honest answer is that I didn't look. I had a story about you that I had decided was true a long time ago, and I never looked hard enough to see whether the story was wrong. That is the most shameful thing I have ever written. You were standing right in front of me for 30 years, and I saw the story instead of the person. I don't know if that is forgivable. I think you are a better man than I am for not making us pay for it completely." I read that paragraph several times, and then I did something I hadn't done in a very long time. I cried. Not quietly, not in a controlled way. The kind of crying that has been waiting a long time and arrives all at once when the door finally opens. I cried for the 9-year-old with the drawing. I cried for every family dinner where I'd been the footnote. I cried for Laura, who had spent 6 years watching someone quietly hollow himself out, trying to earn a love that was being rationed. I cried for the version of myself that had kept showing up, year after year, holding ropes in the dark and telling himself it was enough. And then I stopped, washed my face, made coffee, and felt, for the first time in longer than I could clearly remember, completely like myself. Epilogue. Where we are now. That was 14 months ago. The advisory position is real and it's working. Daniel and I have a functional, careful, honestly earned professional relationship that is slowly, very slowly, becoming something warmer. He apologized for the notice properly, without prompting, over lunch 3 months ago. I accepted it. Claire and I are a work in progress. She is a person who lives on the surface of things, and what I did cracked the surface open. She doesn't entirely forgive me for it, I think. I'm at peace with that. Margaret and I talk more now than we have since I was a child. She calls on Sunday evenings. We talk about small things. It is, unexpectedly, one of the better developments of all of this. Richard and I had dinner last month, just the two of us, which has never in my living memory happened before. He is 71. He moves more slowly. He asked me questions about my consulting work and actually listened to the answers. At the end of the meal, he picked up the check and then he said, not looking at me, looking at the table, "I'm glad you stayed." I didn't know exactly what he meant. Stayed in the family, stayed connected, stayed present through all of it. I said, "Me too." And I meant it. I want to say one thing to the people who will read this and think I should have burned it all down. Maybe you're right. Maybe a cleaner, harder person would have. But I have a folder on my computer. In it is a scan of a drawing, mountains, a river, a small house. I found it in a shoebox when I was cleaning out my childhood bedroom years ago, slightly creased from being folded into quarters. At the top, in red pen, in a teacher's handwriting, "Beautiful imagination." I kept it for 30 years without knowing exactly why. I think now it's because some part of me always knew that the person who made that drawing was worth showing up for. Even when no one else did, I showed up for him. And in the end, slowly, imperfectly, with a sealed envelope and 15 years of invisible rope holding, I made everyone else show up for him too. That's enough. That's more than enough. Edit. To everyone asking, "Yes, I'm okay. Better than okay. Thank you for that." To the people who said, "You should have taken everything." I understand. But I didn't want everything. I wanted to be seen. Turns out that was worth more.